Hi, everyone. I'm here with Ken McCarthy of Integrity by McCarthy, and I'm going to ask him a few questions about an article he wrote for us recently about healthy workplaces. How can a company tell whether they have a healthy or unhealthy workplace? Like, what should they be looking for when they're assessing the health of their workplace?
Thanks, Don. Well, obvious first point is they'd want to be looking for, do they have complaints bubbling up in the workplace? That's obviously an indicator that things are not looking too good. So that's kind of an easy thing to do. Taking a look around. So workplaces always have, groups of individuals that associate with one another more often than not. But when you get into like cliques, and then you get into, people getting together and whispering and talking about others, there could be indicators there. So organizations should be looking out for, do these cliques exist and, are they healthy? Obviously, there's indicators like attendance. And so, myself, Ken McCarthy, if all of a sudden I'm calling in sick, or let's say I'm not seemingly motivated anymore, I'm not participating in, there could be the video calls that the teams are having these days because of COVID, or if there's face to face, have things changed with this one individual? And might that be an indication that something's not right? Management engagement, management absolutely have to be plugged into, who their people are, what their people are all about, and if they're exhibiting anything unusual, those could be early warning signs. And managers and leaders should be asking, organizations should be asking their folks, how are things going? And so they really need to, I'll get into this a little bit later, they really need to demonstrate an interest in making sure the place is healthy. And so it starts with opening your eyes, seeing if there's already little indicators there, and then asking people how things are going.
You also mentioned motivation as a strategy for a healthy workplace. How can you use motivation as a tool to convince, say, a toxic supervisor to change their behavior?
Okay. Yeah, it's quite interesting with the toxic or with the abrasive supervisors because oftentimes they are really, really high performers in organizations and almost to the point where the senior leaders want to take a hands-off approach with them because they get so many great things done. But there's oftentimes a trail of carnage behind them. So I want to believe, and I think everyone believes that people want to be good in the workplace, and people don't want to mistreat others. That's kind of the starting point. First thing I'd say is stop rewarding the abrasive leaders for being abrasive. So to motivate them, reward them certainly for good work, but you've got to recognize that with that sort of environment, abrasive leader, toxic leader, there's going to be casualties. So you've got to make it clear that you have to reward them for healthy workplaces on top of good work. And it's a funny thing because organizations will oftentimes have, statements, policy statements about commitments to diversity and anti-harassment, anti-bullying, and those really become just checklist sorts of things with mandatory training. I'd love to see actually organizations reward people for creating the healthy workplace, for maintaining that healthy workplace, and so that abrasive leader who it's probably their personality. They just want to get things done and they don't care about what's happening around them. You've got to make them care and you've got to reward them for caring, or alternatively take action. So I'm not talking about, cancel culture or calling them out, but it really has to come down to that. Again, these people are often hands off because they get so many great things done and they make money for an organization, but they've got to be called out and they've got to be, rewarded for doing the right things, for correcting their actions. Otherwise it's a trail of misery around them, and we've all seen it many times.
Okay. One of the most effective ways to combat workplace misconduct is to get people to speak up about it. So, how can leaders help to create an environment where people feel comfortable speaking up when they see bad behavior?
Yes. So this is huge. It's simple, but it's kind of difficult to do at times. But it's really simple in that we have to move away from just publishing the policy and just making sure that everybody takes the online training course. You actually have to have leaders who will sit down with their employees and actually talk about these things. Talk about why it's important, talk about impacts. Unless I'm in the work I do, I see lots of people have gone through harassment situations in the workplace, and everyone is miserable. People's lives are destroyed, whether you're the complainant, respondent, or witnesses. It's a big thing, and managers, leaders can't just imagine it's not happening. So they actually have to have meaningful, actual conversations with their staff to say, you know what, hey, this is important. It's more than just a policy, and we need to talk about this. You've got to get into the protection of identity. So there are certainly formal whistleblower programs that I hope will encourage people to come forward. Also, legislation-wise, here in Canada and here in the province of Ontario, there are protections within our legislation for individuals, identities of individuals who participate in harassment and violence investigations, and protecting those things. And I know that it exists in a number of other jurisdictions, so you got to really encourage that. Educate people. People don't know what their options are if they're on the receiving end of harassment or violence. You got to educate them. Tell them, as leaders need to understand the processes and explain it to people. Give people the resources, and then leaders need to be prepared for that conversation where an employee comes up to them for the first time and says, I've been harassed. I've had that experience. It's not easy, and you want to get your head around what you're going to do next, because what you do next will determine whether that person proceeds further and whether their peers will actually ever come forward if they find themselves in a difficult spot.
Okay, great. Well, some great points there. Thank you so
you.
much, Ken. And yeah, look forward to reading your article.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Don.